What is the permissibility of making linguistic hijrah from an Islamic land to a land that is not Islamic? This is something that our scholars have discussed in our times, and in my humble opinion, it is completely jaiz and permissible with some conditions. And of those conditions is that he have the freedom to practice sha'air al-Islam. Sha'air al-Islam means the main pillars of Islam, right? If any country does not allow you to practice the main rituals of Islam, you're not allowed to pray, you're not allowed to fast, you're not allowed to proclaim your Islam, right? Then it is not allowed to go to that land, because Ardullahi wasi'a, go find a place where you're able to do that. First condition. Second condition, that he has enough iman from which and through which he feels confident or expects to be able to avoid the major sins. And as for the minor sins, this is everywhere in the world. But at least the major sins, that he shall avoid the kaba'ir. And the third condition, he has enough ilm that he feels he is safe from doubting his faith. Okay, so there's three basic conditions that need to be met. Number one, there must be freedom in the land. Number two, there must be enough iman that he's able to live as a Muslim without, and this is, of course, there's never a guarantee. Rather, this is your husn al-dhan with Allah Azza wa Jal. You can become the fasiq even in your country, right? And you can become a fasiq in this land as well. So there has to be ghalabat al-dhan, there has to be tawakkul in Allah. And number three, enough ilm that you're not worried about you or your children, a'udhu billah, becoming murtad. You protect your faith in this regard. Now, as for the issue that some people have, that the only reason that it is allowed to live in a non-Islamic land is if you are giving da'wah. I do not agree with this phrase in such an unconditional blanket manner, because there's no evidence for it. Rather, if you are living in a land as a practicing Muslim for the sake of the dunya, then you are not committing any sin, and your reward will be for your Islam. No doubt, if you were to do more and above and beyond, this is good and you will get rewarded. But to make it a condition upon all of the Muslims, not only is this impossible, because most Muslims are not qualified to give da'wah, it is also burdening them with something that Allah has not burdened them with. Allah has burdened you with the 5 pillars, with avoiding the major sins. Do this and you are safe. And you will not be punished for not going above and beyond what this is. Now, by the way, da'wah also means people know you're a Muslim. This is da'wah. Khalas. You don't have to go knocking on doors or preaching at synagogues and churches. You are a Muslim. Your co-workers know this. This is da'wah. Okay? Your friends know this. Your relatives, your neighbors know this. This is da'wah. That's good enough da'wah. So you don't have to go above and beyond this point. Also, the point, there was an extreme opinion that still is common to this day. You still find people saying this, that it is haram to live in a non-Muslim land because the Prophet ﷺ said this and that. The fact of the matter is, all of these ahadith do not indicate that it is haram to do so. Rather, there are authentic narrations that he allowed Muslims of his time to live in non-Muslim lands with conditions. The most important is, of course, the Abyssinians, right? Secondly, there is no Dar al-Islam that we can apply these ahadith upon anyway. There is no Khalifa, there is no anything of this nature such that we say there is Dar al-Islam and then there is Dar al-Kufr, right? Thirdly, there's a whole modern talk going on about dividing the world into Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Kufr and Dar al-this and Dar al-that. Where does it come from? And the fact of the matter is that these distinctions come from early fuqaha, early scholars. They don't come from the Quran. There's nothing in the Quran about this. There's nothing explicit in the hadith that divides the world into 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And that's why early scholars divided the world into 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, depending on which scholar. Therefore, when we understand this, then there is no problem in actually going back to the Quran and Sunnah and redefining the territories of the world with a new description that is not found in the classical books, because this is not... Now, if Allah had said the world is of 2 types, khalas, end of story. If the Prophet ﷺ says the world should be divided into three, khalas, end of story. But it's not. We don't find Quran and Hadith. Rather, this is from the ijtihad of the early scholars. And then they applied rules. Dar al-Islam, Dar al-Harb, Dar al-Kufr, Dar al-Ahd. What should each one be done? All of this talk generated in a particular political climate. We need to, our scholars, not the average Muslims, our scholars need to go back to the books, go back to the Quran and Sunnah, and have a similar discussion. What does it mean to be a citizen in a Western democracy? What does it mean to be a citizen in a land that guarantees you freedom of religion, guarantees you freedom of expression? Right? Can we take a book from the 7th century and open up Dar al-Kufr, these are the rulings, and then cut and paste to America? In my humble opinion, no, we cannot do this. Right? We need to rethink things through, and this is where one of the areas where I think reform is definitely needed, because it's not explicit in the text. So this is a deep topic. I didn't think you realize the profundity of it, but this is a topic that many scholars are thinking about. Tariq Ramadan has written many books about this, and I agree with much of what he has written, what it means to be a Western Muslim, what it means to be a European Muslim. These are very good books, and he is beginning the discussion and dialogue, and it needs to be taken further than this. But inshallah, it's a very profound question. The bottom line, I have a statement that I say: the people who are the most concerned about hijrah should be the last people to ever do it. Stay here. And the people who are the least concerned about hijrah, they're the ones we don't need. We'd rather they go back and live back home. So the very fact you're asking the question means what? Stay here. Stay here. Because because it means you're conscious of the religion. It means you're thinking of Islam and Allah Azza wa Jall's commandments. We need you to stay. The American Ummah needs you. We need people like you. And as for those who couldn't care less about Islam, we never see them in the masjid, wallahi, they are better off going back home, right? Because their sins will be less and their Islam will be safer. So the brother is asking, is there any extra reward for being a Muslim in difficult circumstances? Of course there is. Of course there is. The Prophet ﷺ warned us, the Sahaba, of a time that would come where the one who is faithful to his religion will be like al-qabidi ala al-jamr, will be like the one who is holding burning coals in his hand. Imagine coal, picking it up and holding it, qabid ala al-jamr. And the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever does so will get ajru khamsina minkum, the reward of 50 of you. Even the Sahaba were shocked. They said, surely you mean 50 of them. And he said, no, 50 of you. No, I am not saying it applies to America 2012. But what does it show you? To be a Muslim at times of difficulty will get more reward. The Prophet said, hadith is in Musnad Imam Ahmad, al-ibadatu fil haraji kal-hijrati ilayya. Worshipping perfectly at times of chaos and strife, it is like making hijrah to me. You talk about hijrah, worshipping Allah at times of bloodshed, chaos, fitna, being perfect in this time, it is like you're immigrating to me, because that's what you're doing basically. That's what you're doing. You're leaving the chaos and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So clearly there is no question that the one who worships Allah in difficult times will get more reward than the one who worships Allah at times of ease. And this is an inspiration and inshallah a reason for us to look forward to our own situation and times.